So I haven't been on camera for a while. I've just been doing voiceovers because you can see allergies are kicking my ass. This eye is like partially swollen up again, and it's just a mess. And of course I'm out here outside, but it's important to get outside and walk and exercise every day and get sunshine. But I wanted to address Roz Knight, Squeeze the Quo. She did a 2-part video series trying to tie deaths of U of I students and alumni to the Idaho 4 murders. And this is going to address part 1. And it is absolutely ludicrous. Her video is uncalled for, unnecessary, and she should let these people rest in peace. And I'm sure their families and friends can't be very appreciative of the imaginary dots she's trying to connect. But with that said, I will get into some misinformation that she has in part 1, and then I will address part 2 later. And I'm not going to show you everything in these videos because you don't need to see all of the stuff she's dug into on these young people. She is like Bubbly Waters, but 10 times worse as far as trashing innocent young people.
In the previous presentation, I talked about Ms. Martin. With bringing that up, we're going to do tragic deaths of students associated with the University of Idaho. It's been on the back burner. I've been working on it off and on for a few years because of the amount of deaths that have happened between the years of 2018 and 2022. It's concerning. Something happened. There's been a shift because prior to 2018, there were some tragic events, but it correlates with the population size of the university as well as the community, Moscow. But here between 2018 and 2022, that's 4 years. With the amount of deaths is insane. It's bonkers.
I'm not sure why she even brought up Destiny Ferry, as she was known to us in the local community that was covering the case. Her death had nothing to do with the Idaho 4 murders and doesn't need to be brought up at all unless you are going to honor her and say what a good friend she was to a lot of people and how she covered this case with compassion. But with that said, I have some stats I've compiled from the state of Idaho, and you can pause and read them, but it's for the 4 years that Roz is talking about, 2018 to 2022, and the deaths in Latah County, which is where University of Idaho is, are not out of line. And I guarantee you, if I go look at any college across the country, you will find similar types of deaths. And none of them have anything to do with the 4 murders that took place on November 13th, 2022. I bet if I looked at whatever town Roz lived in, I could parse and dissect all the different deaths in her area, and it wouldn't mean anything. Like, trying to connect imaginary dots is just, it's ridiculous. But I'm going to show you these stats, and you can pause and read them. So this is death rates, mortality 2018 to 2022, and then leading causes of death for 2018, leading causes in 2019, leading causes in 2020, leading causes in 2021, and then we will go to 2022. And District 6 is where Latah County is, which is where Moscow is.
We're going to bring another element, which is numerology. Numerology and symbolism go hand in hand. When I say numerology, I also mean numbers.
I'm sorry, but to me, this is so disrespectful to bring up numerology and symbolism to try to water down a heinous act that was committed by a monster. It's disrespectful to the victims, it's disrespectful to the survivors, it's disrespectful to their families and friends. Okay, numerology is a joke. That's not anything to do with why they were murdered.
At some point in the past, is it possible that where the sliding glass doors are, the front door used to be there, and that's why it was considered King Road at a time? Because in the PCA it says it's King Road residence, which we have to take everything with a grain of salt there.
No, the PCA does not need to be taken with a grain of salt. There's actually still a lot of factual evidence in there, and the address is correct, 1122 King. So even though the front door at the time of the murders was facing Queen, the house, when originally built, had a door that came in off of King Road. There was a drive between those other houses that went down back there to 1122. And the front door was originally where those sliders were on the main floor. And they added a patio on, and they moved the kitchen from where the laundry room was. So the laundry room currently, at the time of the murders, was where the kitchen had been. The house had been remodeled about 5 times and a floor added on. So nothing mysterious there, nothing nefarious, really has nothing to do with the crime.
This survivor, Dylan, was asking this victim to be her +1 to the Betty Ball. Many of us believe that this was a planned attack.
No, it was not to be her +1 to the Betty's Ball. It was for the Pi Beta Phi formal, which was on Friday night the 11th, and her and Kaylee went to it. There's also pictures. Maddie was at it. Xana was at it. They had the after party at 1122, and it had nothing again to do with the murders. Dylan did not ask her back in preparation of anything. And as far as the Betty's Ball, that was on Saturday night, the 12th, and that was a Kappa Alpha Theta formal, which Maisie Chapin belonged to that sorority, so she invited her brother Ethan as her +1.
We learned that, yes, we all knew that Kaylee had moved out for a duration of time. We don't know when or for how long, but she wasn't totally moved out because some of her belongings were still there. And we learned recently that she and Maddie were not getting along, to the point that Kaylee didn't want her to go to Olivia's wedding, which is her older sister, and it was May of 2022.
Well, Kaylee had moved out 10 days prior to the murders. That's already been established. Parents, friends, etc. have all talked about when she moved out. And also it had nothing to do with her and Maddie. The not getting along with Maddie came from the interview that Christy gave recently, and that was in the summer of 2021. Olivia did not get married in May of 2022. Her wedding was in August of 2021, and Kaylee and Maddie had made up by the time the wedding took place back in 2021.
So did this survivor use that as a rationale for Kaylee to not only be her +1, but maybe mend fences with Maddie? Because in the end, we're told that Kaylee, meaning, she said, you know what, I'm going to go because I want to show Maddie my Range Rover.
Okay, so there was a lot more going on than just Kaylee coming back to show the Range Rover. She also had a test that she was going to take on the Monday, and she planned on staying on the Tuesday. So her coming back for the dance and all of that had nothing to do with Dylan trying to use the situation for anything.
Kaylee was pretty much graduated. She just did her finals on Monday, and that was her last class. Or that would have been her last class.
Would have been her last class on Monday.
Yes. Absolutely.
And she was coming back on Tuesday.
He also has a +1, which is Xana. And they are missing for hours. It is unknown where they are.
Well, actually, according to Idaho State Police, they believe that they were at the Sigma Chi house the whole time. And that really hasn't changed. I know we're now hearing that they were home later than initially thought, but ISP has never wavered from believing they were at Sigma Chi that whole time after the Betty's ball.
She had many bank accounts. She had over $100,000 in one of them, which is a lot for a 21-year-old.
No, she did not have $100,000, and Steve already addressed all this, and he talked about all of her different bank accounts, talking about how they got her a debit card, put her on their Amex card, set up retirement accounts, her car loans. And if you actually go look through those warrants, you'll see that a lot of those things are accounts that you use to like transfer payments to each other, like Venmo, you know, the PayPal type of things. And I look back when I was in college, and I had like 11 accounts between credit cards I had opened, my debit card, student loan account, all that stuff. And if we had had PayPal and Venmo and things like that back then, I would have had even more accounts. But no, Kaylee did not have $100,000 in several bank accounts, and Steve has already basically been like laughing about why or who would start stupid rumors like that.
In a white vehicle, giving out citations for underage drinking to, well, there was a total of 4, but then it was 3. A total of 4 initially, and then it became 3. And they didn't look intoxicated at all.
So posting this again so people can see about minor in consumption, minor in possession, and you don't have to look drunk. And the reason why it was 3 citations and not 4 was because Saeed was over 21. And I can tell you're trying to make this about numerology, which is just absolutely ridiculous. The 4 down to 3, you keep emphasizing that. And then as far as the whole minor in possession deal, they had a grant for that. So Moscow police for several years has been getting a grant to do plainclothes patrols in an unmarked car. And I do have the invoice. I got a FOIA request and got the invoice for when they received that unmarked car back in 2019. So can we put this to rest that Rosendahl and the other officer were doing anything wrong that night? They weren't. They were doing exactly what their job was, which was the undercover patrol to catch minors in consumption / possession. Again, nothing to do with the murders.
Going back to Ms. Martin. The car accident happened May of 2024. So last year, a few years after that press conference. Here it says, woman who died. Woman who died in fatal crash in Benoit County identified. The 45-year-old Pullman woman who died in a head-on collision Tuesday was identified on Wednesday by the coroner as Destiny Martin. She died at the scene when her Ford Escape, which is an SUV, collided with a Volvo tractor trailer. That's pretty large. That's a sturdy vehicle. On U.S. Highway 95, which is a major road. It's talked about in the PCA. And once this highway goes into the residential area of Moscow, it is Nez Perce Road.
Well, actually, 95 does not go into Nez Perce Road. And also, again, I don't understand why you're bringing Destiny up. Her death was a tragic accident. She drifted over, hit a tractor trailer, nothing to do with the murders. I don't understand your little snide remarks about, oh, well, it was an SUV or tractor trailer. Oh, that's a large vehicle. That means nothing. And stop being disrespectful to Destiny.
And I find it interesting that someone in a Volvo tractor trailer gets that injured. I guess it all depends on the speed, the angle, so on and so forth. Because when you just look here, So this accident expert says dump truck driver accelerated into crash that killed 2 people. And this happened March 12th of 2024. So here's the man. And here is the crash. And that's a dump truck. And dump trucks are large, but so are Volvo tractor trailers. And he crashed into this. And this is definitely bigger than an SUV, but it's also a trailer. So just to give some context there.
So what exactly is your context there? Are you trying to claim that her accident wasn't an accident? Because what's the whole point of bringing up a tow truck crashing or a dump truck or whatever that was? I really don't care, because it had nothing to do with destiny. And again, her death had nothing to do with the Idaho 4 murders. And she was a very good friend to a lot of us over on the TikTok side of the true crime community. And this is very disrespectful. I don't care if you are unsure of why the tractor trailer driver got hurt like that from hitting an SUV. That's what happened. There was no foul play.
Right, so next we'll go into the victims of Moscow, Idaho at the University of Idaho.
Did you really just say victims of Moscow, Idaho, of University of Idaho? Okay, some of these people that you're talking about died in car accidents. Others committed suicide. We don't know why. Some were after they graduated from college. So unless you have proof that something that happened to them while they were at college was directly responsible for their death, to say victims is, again, disrespectful. It's belittling their deaths. And I'm sure their families and friends don't appreciate you diving into them and showing all their social media and acting like something nefarious went on.
Tongue out. You're going to see a lot of that throughout the series through different males. Mostly males. Some females, but mostly males. That's why I put this in here, as well as voodoo donuts. I've got issues with that. I can do a series on that or just a video on that if you like.
College kids put their tongues out in photos and it's playful. It means like you're trying to read too much into this stuff. Taking their photos and parsing them like this is just ridiculous. And voodoo donuts, I don't understand your problem with them at all. I'm not a fan of Portland, Oregon, but when I go there, I always go to Voodoo Donuts. So I guess you could have a problem with me too, Roz. I mean, you already do anyway, but I'm not quite understanding what you're getting at here at all.
Right before Rosendahl goes back to Moscow, and then the noise complaint or threat of you better not be making any noise complaints at 1122. So this is where it's going to get a little much.
Getting a little much how? In your own imagination? What does When Rosendahl Come Back have to do with when Mr. Sims committed suicide? And again, how disgusting for you to try to even make a connection between his death and the noise complaints at 1122 and Rosendahl, etc. Ridiculous.
Another example of her getting nature Garrow offered was a time during their sophomore year at U of I, or UI, in which the two drove up to Moscow for the Treasure Valley separately. From the Treasure Valley separately, but still together in spirit. We were in separate cars, but we had these walkie-talkies, and we talked the entire 6 hours up, Garrow said. We were just singing back and forth on the walkie-talkies and making weird comments about what we saw, and we played I Spy. We weren't together, I was in front of her, but we were having a really good time. So they're going to U of I, and they have walkie-talkies. A thought that came to my head was, are those fraternity or sorority issued walkie-talkies? It's a thought.
okay, so that young lady she was talking about died in a tragic car accident. Again, nothing to do with the Idaho 4. And the walkie-talkie story was a cute story, just showing you how some of these college kids have fun with their friends. But then she gets this thought that could those have been issued by the fraternities and sororities? No, they don't issue walkie-talkies to us when we get into fraternities and sororities. Sorry, Roz.
I just get a range of 1990, and his death happened March 25th of 2019. I can't even find a date of birth. And it gets much stranger. But first, we have Catherine, 2018. We now learn Max is 2019. And then 3 years after that is Richard in 2022.
So it gets stranger. How? Again, is this stuff in your imagination? So now you have another student who unalived himself. So you have a car accident, 2 that unalived themselves. So 3 deaths so far that you're talking about. One of the guys committed suicide after college, well after he had graduated from U of I. So again, not even related. And also, so what if you can't find the date of birth of one of these people? What does that matter? It's honestly none of your business.
All right, so this is Cole Bennett. I talked about him in one of my previous videos with Linda Lane. He's in marketing the same time that Maddie was, and people believe he's involved in this in some way.
No, that's actually not anyone named Cole Bennett. It's Cole Elliott. And yes, he was in marketing, but he had graduated in May of 2022, so he wasn't even around Moscow as a student when the murders happened. He was not somebody that was even tied to anything with the case. I think maybe you're confusing him with Cole Barenberg, who was one of the individuals mentioned as having a likelihood ratio of DNA under Maddie's fingernails. And he was a student at the time and was in marketing with Maddie.
And I was on this the other day. And now, when you go to Friends, it has now changed to this, which is so strange. So strange. Because the reason why I bring up Cole, it's because he is friends with him. And it's one of the few that's on there. So, and many believe that he has something to do with what happened at 1122.
Well, that's weird because when I look up Max on Facebook, it brings up friends. Not just a few, it brings up 243. And yeah, it figures that Cole Elliott would be friends with him because they were in Beta Theta Pi together.
Moving on to his brother. Kai Fulfer. Kai Fulfer, just a boy who loves knives. Follow my mane at Pillow Dreams. Now he's also in the fraternity. You know there are people who collect knives. Just keep that in mind. And there is a craftsmanship to it. And some people really enjoy knives. But where is the line? And yes, I understand there's a demographic, and that is considered normal. It's part of the culture. But if the culture is beating your wife within your family or within your town, that does not mean it's okay. That does not mean it's right. That's why I don't like, on an extreme level, that Voodoo Donuts place, because it crosses lines. And people don't know where the line is until it's too late, or they do cross a line and people are aware of it and they allow them to get away with it. And that's hazing, sexual assault, so on and so forth. So having pretty much a page dedicated to knives and you're not selling them, or if you're saying I'm a collector, you make it known, you make it clear. That's one thing. With that being said, and he is part of that community and that area, you can have someone like this who has these types of knives in that time and place, possibly, but they're looking at the defendant who is in a different state that may have purchased one or did purchase one on Amazon. That's what I'm trying to get at.
He hasn't even posted on this page since 2018. So just a little ridiculous for you to be trying to make this into something crazy. And then there you go again, trying to drag Voodoo Donuts into it. And then, the whole reason why Koberger buying a knife is considered part of a totality of evidence, it's because his DNA was also found at the crime scene on the sheath under a victim, and his car was circling the neighborhood. Okay, it wasn't just that he bought a knife and that was the only thing. So trying to make the fact that this young man had a page as a knife collector or admirer of the workmanship on knives has nothing to do with the murders. Nothing. Quit villainizing innocent young people.
He has one picture, and this is February 28th, 2022. That looks like coal. This looks like Jack. Yep, there's Jack.
Well, yeah, breaking news. They were in Beta Theta Pi together. I imagine they'd be in a bid day picture. What's your point?
Okay, so I just learned about him. Just right now, real time. It makes me want to go through that fraternity to see throughout. Hopefully, I'll be able to do it sooner than later in regards to once this has been uploaded, I'm going to have to go do it right away.
Oh, yay. So that means we can look forward to you being bubbly waters on steroids even more and digging up more stuff on these young people. Gee, how fun. Let's just trash people because they went to U of I and try to make them the suspect instead of Brian Koberger.
So here is Beta, Idaho. And I mentioned already Jack and Adam. And this was not one of the major fraternities I was looking into. I'm going to now, especially when you have all those knives. And the way that Max, his information is very quiet. And the information that we are able to find is sus.
Sus. I'm going to give you a Hitler facepalm. There's nothing sus about Max or Jack or Adam or Beta Theta Pi.
Emma is January 1st, 2022. And then Richards would be after her. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 deaths before we get to the 4 victims of 1122. Doesn't that just blow your mind? 5.
No, it doesn't blow my mind. And Emma Mills was a snowmobile accident. Again, this is an unnecessary video that you did. There's no reason to dig into these kids' lives. They had nothing to do with the Idaho 4 case. There's nothing strange going on in Moscow that led to any of these kids' deaths. So, I don't get it. It just stop.
What little information we found sounded pretty sus. No date of birth, but having him die at the University of Idaho on Nez Perce Road. He has a brother with all those knives, and that's the first time I've seen a Insta where any of the members of a fraternity or a sorority have all those knives and still has them up. It could be because he's simply not guilty. He's innocent. He has nothing to hide. Or it's something that's hidden in plain sight. Or eyes wide shut more is the more appropriate. Eyes wide shut.
Yeah, it is because he's innocent and had nothing to do with the crime. And it isn't a crime to have knives and have a Instagram page with knives. But again, like I mentioned, it's totality of evidence. Kohberger happened to have bought the same type of knife, same type of sheath that was found under a victim. His DNA was on that sheath under the victim. The car circling, the phone pings. I mean, how long are you pro-burgers, and I know you guys hate that when you're called that, going to keep ignoring the actual evidence against Kohberger and trying to manufacture evidence out of your ass to implicate other young people that aren't involved?
And Cole Elliott, that name has been floating around, who may have some connections to that night.
No, Cole Elliott's name has not been floating around as having any connections to that night. Neither was anyone named Cole Bennett. Okay, that was just your creative juices there going. But Cole Elliott, no. Again, I think you're mistaking him for Cole Berenberg, and there's nothing that was saying that Cole Berenberg was even involved. They're saying Maddie didn't fight back, so any of the DNA under her nails wasn't related to the murders anyway. So I just wanted you to see my view right now. I'm sitting here as I wrap this video up, surrounded by these adorable goslings. There's several of them all over this area of the park. And it's just a reminder to get outside, enjoy nature, enjoy life, enjoy the beautiful things. Kaylee Jade Day is this weekend, June 8th. We could all take heed to that message, which is do more of what you enjoy. So in her memory, get outside, go visit friends, go visit family, do something kind for others. And keep that in mind when you do your videos. So instead of trying to implicate everybody but the suspect, if you want justice, focus on the facts of the case and helping get justice for the victims, survivors, and their families and friends by focusing on the suspect and getting him put away. Not making up stories about their friends and families, and not accusing the victims of being involved in nefarious things, and the surviving roommates of being involved, and the parents of being involved in crypto scams or drugs, or keep it factual, keep it in reality, and keep it respectful to the memories of the victims. And there's no reason to drag up all of these other young people at University of Idaho, living or that have passed away, to try to make some silly point drawing imaginary dots to the murders. So just think about that. Be respectful and do better.